All right, 10.4, oligopoly. Oligopoly. So again, just kind of going back to that big number line that we talked about with the spectrum right on it. We had perfectly competitive over here. We've got mono-competitive, close to perfectly competitive. We've got monopoly over here. And then right in the middle here is our oligopoly. Not in the middle, but you know what I mean. Close to monopoly, halfway in between monopoly and monopolistic competition. So let's talk about some of the definitions here, right? So how do we define oligopoly? It is when a small number of large firms have either all or most of the sales in an industry. Now, oligopoly is a bit unique in terms that the outcomes very much depend on what other people are doing, okay? So there is interdependence. And the type of interdependence is, I will spell it out right here for y'all. So if the oligopolists compete aggressively, they are going to act similarly to perfectly competitive firms, right? Meaning they're going to drive down costs and this is going to lead to eventually zero profits for all. Alternatively, no, let's just stick to that. Alternatively, if they collude, a word I used to have to define, but no longer, right? Collude means, you know, secretly acting together. If oligopolists collude with each other, they may act like a monopoly. And by acting like a monopoly, they would succeed in pushing up prices and therefore earning consistently high levels of profit. So I'm sure a lot of you are like, well, Dr. McCarthy, of course they're going to want to collude with each other, right? Why would you drive down the costs and have zero profits for all as compared to pushing up the prices and having consistently high levels of profit for all, right? Well, we're going to talk about that. Essentially, there are some incentives that keep oligopolists from colluding together permanently. And so we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna learn what's called game theory, a little bit of game theory today. So what are some of the ways that oligopolists can collude? Right? Collusion is, you know, these agreements to reduce output and keep prices high. So, you know, some examples would be holding down industry output, just kind of trying to, prey on that law of demand at a smaller amount of stuff. People are willing to pay more money for it. Another example of collusion might just be explicitly charging a higher price. And then the last part of it is dividing the profit among, Gesundheit, the oligopolists. Now, when you have a group of people that have come together for the sole purposes of colluding, we have a name for that. That is called a cartel. The two main cartels we are used to hearing about in the news are the oil cartel, the oil producing, exporting countries cartel, and the drug cartel, right? The cocaine and other drug cartel from Colombia and stuff like that, right? What was that guy's name? They finally got him, but then, I'm trying to, anyways. But, so a cartel is a group of firms that have a formal agreement to collude to essentially produce the monopoly output and charge the monopoly price. And so we'll talk about what that looks like graphically in a little bit. This is a nice chapter, or this sub-chapter, right, 10.4, because we don't have cost curves with oligopolies, right, which is great. And we kind of just, we're going to talk about a relatively simple demand curve that oligopolists face, and we'll walk through the dynamics about it in a second here. But before we do that, in order to understand that demand curve, which tends to be kind of a point of contention for a lot of students, we have to learn what's going on and the underlying dynamics of it. And in order to do that, we get to learn probably one of my favorite lessons in economics, which is the prisoner's dilemma.